In 2015, the world has changed. People knew about climate change since a long while. And all of you knew that you cannot continue like that. But you will do. The economy and money lead the world. People buy and throw without caring about the environment. I will tell you what will happen to the world because of your behavior. The overpopulation led us to the end. There is no clean water, no clean and healthy food, which was replaced by artificial one. The temperature got hotter, and there were no places to live anymore. Climate refugees came to the place where the people can only live. Plastic is everywhere. All animals died. Only some primitive forms of life survived. There is no forest, no single plant. People suffered. They got sick. The natural disasters and wars killed 90% of Earth's population. And now, in 2015, there are only about 8 million people around the world. Most of them are artificial intelligence like me. So the people of the future sent me here to make you aware of the situation. Because there is still some hope. Now the future is in your hands.